All right, I'm going to make the first video and I am driving to a meeting, so bear with me. We are going to discuss how I managed through undergraduate school with no debt. So like I said, I came to the country from Kenya in 97 and then I really only had $500 in my pocket. I was admitted to Williams Baptist College in Arkansas, and I lived in the dormitories at that point. That's what all the international students did. And to live in the dormitory, between your boarding fee and tuition, you paid close to $10,000 a semester. But remember, this time I only had $500. Through the grace of God, I was admitted to school with only $500. I managed to get through the semester somehow through the grace of God again. My parents probably sent me a few more dollars along the way during the semester, but it was nothing nearly to $10,000. It probably totaled about maybe $2,000 to $3,000 total. I managed to get through that semester. The biggest thing about that semester that I'm gonna say, by God's grace, I made the dean list, meaning I made all A's in my classes that semester. And because Williams Baptist College was a Christian institution, when you made the dean list, they paid for your tuition either for the next semester or if you had any arrears prior to. So they gave me $10,000 to put towards my tuition, and since I still owed school about $8,000, of course, school took a majority of that money. They sent me, I think, about a little less than $2,000 from the remaining of the money that I qualified from being the president's list. At that point, I moved to Minnesota to live with my uncle. At the time, my uncle lived in Marshall, Minnesota, because remember, at this time, I had no job, I had no way of earning money. Really didn't know anybody else other than my uncle, and he had a house, he had a few kids, so I lived with him for a short period of time, which I'm very grateful. I would not be here today without Uncle Josh, and he sustained me without me paying any rent, paying any bills whatsoever, for I believe about 6 to 8 months, and that is kind of what started my journey to making the next step of my life. I moved from Marshall, Minnesota to Iowa, and the reason why I moved at that point, I was very eager to go back to school. I'd taken one semester off just to kind of get my finances together, to try to get back on my feet. I worked day and night, saved up some money, and I started researching on cheap schools that I could go to and be able to pay for my tuition. Remember, my parents could not afford to pay for my tuition at this point. I didn't have any grants, so I needed to find a cheap school that I could go to, pay for school, pay for my living expenses, and be able to attain a degree that I wanted to attain. At this point in my life, I was toying between going to pharmacy school and nursing. The reason why I chose nursing was because I knew I could be able to earn money within a very short time. Meaning, in nursing, I could get a CNA, start earning a little more than I was earning as a direct care, which was $7 an hour at that point. And I would be able to attain that within a very short time. You're talking about less than 3-4 months. I would be able to get a CNA, and then after that, I could get a LPN, which was also another less than 1 year, and I would be able to even earn even more than what a CNA did. So just thinking through the process of I needed to finance myself, it just seemed like a very smart idea to go through nursing, because I'd be able to earn my money as I progressed in my education. So I looked at schools, and at that point I was looking at the cheapest school that was located in the cheapest place that I would be able to afford, making minimal wage. I looked around and I located a school in Storm Lake, Iowa. It was a community college. I chose community college again because it was cheap. They didn't pay any international fee. If you know anything about being an international student, you pay didn't have to pay international fee. So I applied to the school. I got in. I was enrolled in pre-nursing courses. Remember, I had made really good grades with sciences in Williams Baptist College. So I had some chemistry, biology, basic math, English classes that I had done very well. I was able to transfer that and start pre-nursing courses. And after I got into school, my next step was to find the cheapest place to stay. Salt Lake, Iowa has a couple of schools. Buena Vista University is one of them, and Iowa Central. So it's a little bigger, maybe college town, I would say. So of course, living there was a slightly more expensive just because of the two universities, colleges in the area. So I looked around Salt Lake, Iowa, and looked for the smallest, closest city I could find that had the cheapest living expense, and Alta, Iowa popped in the map, which I am surprised until today how I found a place to live in Alta, Iowa. If you looked up in the Google map at Alta, Iowa, I think it has a population of less than 1,000, probably even less back then. It was literally one street, one gas station, and really not much going, but it was an advantage for me because I was able to pay rent very cheaply. I got a one-bedroom apartment for, I believe it was either $200 or slightly less than that. That meant if I was earning $7-8 an hour, I would be able to save up significant money at the end of the month and pay for my tuition. And having chosen a cheaper school, it was doable. I got a job working with children with mental disability, mostly autistic children, in Salt Lake, Iowa. I think it was Faith Open Charity was the institution. And I also looked for a second job at that point. Once I got to Alta, Iowa and started school, I could tell I was able to manage my school work, working full-time and going to school, and I had some extra time on the weekends, so I picked up a job working at Burger King. And between the two jobs, honestly, I was able to sustain myself financially without any difficulty because, of course, my living expenses were very low, and I had paid off. I had bought a very cheap car. I think I paid about $2,000 that I had saved up when I lived with my uncle at the time, and paid car cash. So I didn't have any car payments whatsoever. So my only expense was just my electricity. I used the internet in school, and then the rent. That's about it. And then the rest of the money I put it towards my college tuition. I managed to finish my nursing degree through Iowa Central Community College and got my associate degree in nursing. And since I think accumulated enough credit, I got an associate degree in arts and an associate degree in nursing. And that was, I believe, in 2001. During that transition period, I had some medical problems. It took me a while to do my boards because I had a major surgery and a little setback. So I didn't do my boards until I believe around mid of 2002. And then after I finished doing my nursing boards at this point, I really skipped the LPN part because I felt like I was earning enough money as a CNA, which I obtained when I was enrolled in nursing school. So I didn't have to pay anything. After the first semester of nursing school, I was qualified to take my CNA boards. So I took my CNA boards. I didn't have to pay anything extra. That was also a very smart move. And then since I was doing very well in school, I knew it was going to take me a very short time to finish nursing. So I finished my nursing fairly quick at that point. Within 2.5 years, I graduated with both associate degrees. And I think at that point I started thinking of moving up to a bigger city because now I'm going to earn a lot more money. And I moved to Kansas City, which probably was not the smartest move for me. Because looking at what goals I had set up for myself, moving to Kansas City was a little bit of a setback. And I can tell you why. Kansas City was a bigger city. Of course, higher living expense, and honestly, they do not pay nurses very well. I think I made $17 an hour. You're working at University of Kansas Medical Center at the time. When you look back, you're paying $800 on your apartment and earning $17 an hour. Clearly, your living expense and your income is not, you're not going to save much. So I only lived there for a short time and realized that was not a very smart move. I relocated back to Iowa. I remember at this point I only had my associate degree, so I decided to finish my bachelor's. And the best way to finish a bachelor's is always, if you go into a community college in a state, if you transfer to a state university in that state, you don't lose any credits. You can transfer all your credits to undergraduate. So for the students out there, if you choose a community college and you want to finish your bachelor's degrees, you want to move to a state university in that state where you did your associate degrees. That will limit the amount of credits you're going to lose, and also usually it's a little cheaper. So overall, it's a very smart move to do that. So that's a second point. Live below your means. Choose the right schools for you, cheaper schools if you can, and if you finish your associate, pick the right state university to finish your bachelor's degree, which usually the smart move is to go to the same state university where you finished your associate degree. So these are the points I need you to jot down as you go. When I was enrolled, at that point it didn't take very much. It was just very easy transfer and application to go to University of Iowa. It took me about a year to finish my bachelor's because I had already done a lot of, during my transition point, I was taking classes. I had enrolled in some classes to just finish my prerequisites for BSN. So I was ready to go into BSN program. I took always more than 12 credits. So even if nursing required me to take 12 to 14 credits, I always took 18 credits in class. That extra class was towards my next step, which was my next education level. So I took all my BSN classes in the community college, and I enrolled in some classes through University of Iowa, and I was still in community college. So I was able to take most of my prerequisites to finish my bachelor's at that point. When in a year's time, I was done with my bachelor's degree, and I just to go back, I decided Kansas City was not for me. Living expenses was too high. They were not paying too much, and there wasn't really visible way of going to school without losing any college credits if I applied to any of the colleges in Kansas City, and most of them were expensive anyway. So I decided to relocate back to Iowa, went to Iowa City for my bachelor's, and got a job in University of Iowa. I was fortunate enough to have done very well in school, and even working 2 to 3 jobs in undergrad when I was doing my associate degree, I managed to do very well with my grades because I would come home, study very late, at minimal sleep. Definitely, you have to sacrifice. Think about it. It's a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain. That's what you always have to think about. So when I moved back to Iowa City to enroll in my bachelor's degree, I got a job in ICU because I had talked to a few of my instructors, and they were telling me, they educated me on postgraduate training after nursing. So at this point, I'm not going through BSN is just a stepping stone. I am looking at what do I need to do for my next step for my graduate level. And the one thing that stuck out to me was everybody kept telling me, if you're able to, the smartest move to go is to go to anesthesia school. These were my instructors. I have to give credit to them. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about anesthesia school, and that is nurse registered anesthesiologist. If you Google that, or registered nurse anesthetist is the other name for it. The reason why I chose that profession, I am an introvert. I am not a very sociable person, so I needed a career where I didn't have to talk as much. I didn't have to, nothing wrong with relating with patients, but that's not my nature. I am by nature an introvert, so with my personality, anesthesia was the best choice for me. And secondly, it was the highest paying course postgraduate for nursing. And that is another point you need to jot down. When you're making your decisions on what to take in school, you need to do research. Google search. Let's say you decide to do software engineer. Go to Google and say job search for software engineers. Look at how many jobs pop up. And those jobs, look at salary for software engineers. See how much you're going to get paid when you graduate. Because the biggest mistake people do is go to school, take a degree without knowing how much you're going to be paid when you graduate. What is the point of going to school if you're going to make really not as much dent in your income after you invested time and money going to school? So the biggest thing I tell every young person before you decide a degree, do really proper research on how much these people make, what is their lifestyle, what these jobs entail. Do not just go to school and take credits in the name of just getting a degree. It's pointless, it's a waste of time, because you're going to wake up 30 years old regretting and trying to go back to school to get a degree that's going to pay you. Nobody enjoys going to work. Some people do, but most people go to work to make an income. If you are going to work, you need to be able to be paid for it. That's the bottom line. So if you're not making significant amount of money when you graduate, chances are you're going to be struggling financially, and chances are you're going to be trying to go back to school to get probably another degree, and that's waste of money, waste of time. Always think in terms of time and money. Time is money, and money is time. Whatever you invest in, make sure your return is profitable. If you're going to invest time into school, make sure whatever degree you're getting is going to pay you accordingly. You all have your standards on what your lifestyle is. I'm not going to define to you what your standards are. You choose your style of living and what kind of living style you want to be, and choose your careers accordingly. Don't go into, let's say, political science and expect to come out and be the president. How many people want to be presidents? Your chances of being a president are very slim to none in the United States if you're a black minority person going to school. So always choose accordingly. Also choose to appropriately to your socioeconomical status, your ability. If you're planning to go to Kenya, maybe political science is an appropriate degree, but you have to make appropriate choices. Otherwise, you suffer at the end of the day by having invested time and not really reaping any benefits as far as getting your money's worth for what you went to school with. So I kind of digressed on that. I'm sorry. So we are going to go back to my choices for anesthesia school. For me, personality-wise, it matched my personality, and it was lucrative as far as financial benefit at the end of graduation. That's the reason why I chose anesthesia school. But there was also a biggest issue going into anesthesia school. I knew everybody I talked to, you could not work when going to anesthesia school. So I knew I had to get myself into a financial situation where I could be able to go to school without paying for school. I didn't have a husband or parent who was going to pay for me, so I had to do that on my own. So I decided to finish my bachelor's degree in University of Iowa. During that time, I was taking some classes, which is your organic chemistry. You also have to do research, what degree you want to do, see what is the requirements are to get into that program, and start taking classes one at a time, ahead of time. Because all that is going to make it easy for you to apply into a program. So as I was in the University of Iowa working in ICU, and at that point I had researched that going to an anesthesia school, you needed to work in ICU. So of course, when I applied there, I didn't give them a choice. I said I wanted to work in ICU. Having made really good grades at that time, they didn't really accept a lot of new grads into ICU, because they expected you to have some type of experience in like med surge or step down units so that you can work in ICU. I was able to break that barrier for some reason, and I guess I have to be grateful to the fact that I was a young black female that gave me an opportunity to prove myself, and I've done very well in school. So always keep those things in the back of your mind. You have advantages you can use. That I used to my advantage. Got into ICU. I believe I was actually one of the youngest people in that ICU, and of course for minorities, that was we didn't have a lot of minorities in ICU back then. Thank God for that opportunity. Got into ICU in University of Iowa. That was my biggest probably jumping stone into my next career. I worked there for a short time, finished my bachelor's, and then I started looking at, now I needed to get myself into a financial stable place to be able to go to anesthesia school without working. And I looked around for jobs in Iowa at the time. They paid decent, better than Kansas City, definitely. I already gave you the figure for Kansas City. I was making probably $6-7 a little more in Iowa with less expenses. So when you calculate it, again, make smart choices on where you live and your cost of living and what your income in that place. Living in Iowa was a smart choice for me because I paid less for my rentals or places I live. Living expense was low, and I got paid a lot more. So I was able to save some money. Looked around for some jobs, and at that time there were opportunities in Arizona. And the reason why Arizona had really good opportunities is you had old people that owned houses in Arizona that really, but they didn't have good healthcare system. They didn't have enough nursing school in Arizona to produce enough nurses to take care of these people there. It was wide field. They really needed nurses at that time, so they were recruiting left and right. They were giving bonuses. So I talked to a few recruiters, and I literally signed up for a job within 2 weeks. They paid for my moving expenses. They gave me a sign-on bonus, and at that point, they paid me $12 more than I was getting paid in Iowa. Again, smart move. Do your research. Follow the money, because I had a goal in mind. My goal was to be financially stable to go back to anesthesia school. So made a smart choice, moved to Arizona, and when I moved here, they were paying anything overtime. If you work as a nurse, you work 3 12-hour shifts in the hospital, and I transitioned straight into ICU. So I was definitely at that point, got into ICU. If you worked your 3 12-hour shifts, they paid you they paid you double time for anything over your 3 12-hour shifts. And that was really my biggest breakthrough, because I was able to make 6 figures the entire time I worked in ICU. I worked 2 full-time jobs. Worked 3 12-hour shifts in being a Good Samaritan, and I had another gig where I moonlighted and worked the other 3 days. So I worked, saved up some money for me to go to anesthesia school. And I will stop there and make the next video. Talk to you later. Bye.